Hello family, welcome to Stories with Storytime. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you. As you do so, sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The morning sun rose, but it didn't bring light to Alina's world as she stood by the window. Her hands trembled, clutching the letter that shattered her life. Her family's empire, built over generations, was gone, bankrupt, wiped out in a single stroke. How did this happen? She whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief. Her mind raced, replaying the last few months, her mother's sudden illness, the shady deals, and the relentless pressure from creditors. She never imagined the foundation of her family's legacy would crumble so swiftly. The knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Derek stood there, his face a mask of cold indifference. "You need to leave," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. Her eyes widened, searching his face for a trace of the man she once loved. "Derek, this is our home, our life," she pleaded, her voice cracking, but his gaze was hard, distant. "Your family's debts are ruining me. I can't let you drag me down," he replied, his words sharp and final. Alina's heart shattered as Derek turned away without a second glance. His footsteps echoing through the grand hall that was no longer heard, she fell to her knees, the weight of his betrayal suffocating her. How could he abandon her so easily? They had vowed to stand by each other for better or worse. But now, when she needed him the most, he was casting her out. Like a stranger. "Please don't do this," she sobbed, but her words were swallowed by the emptiness that engulfed her. Derek's voice echoed from the hallway, instructing the servants to pack her belongings. Her life was being dismantled piece by piece, reduced to nothing more than boxes and memories. As she watched her world collapse, Alina realized she was truly alone. But as she stood amidst the ruins of her shattered empire, a resolve began to take shape. She would survive this. Somehow she would rise again. But first she had to face the darkness that awaited her. Beyond the doors of the home she once called hers, the cold wind stung Alina's face as she stood on the street, her suitcase by her side. She watched as the grand gates of her former home closed, shutting her out both literally and figuratively. The pain of Derek's betrayal was raw, slicing through her heart like a blade. Her phone buzzed, breaking her from her thoughts. It was a news alert. Her breath caught as she read the headline, "A's of the Harper Empire abandoned after family's bankruptcy." Her vision blurred as she scrolled through the article, seeing pictures of Derek with Vanessa on his arm, laughing, smiling, moving on, gone as if she never existed. Rage bubbled inside her, scorching through the numbness that had paralyzed her since Derek's rejection. How could he replace her so easily, and with Vanessa, her supposed friend, the woman who had comforted her during her family's struggles? The betrayal felt like poison spreading through her veins. Alina's hands shook as she read the comments beneath the article. People mocked her, calling her useless, a burden. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She wouldn't give the world the satisfaction of seeing her break. A familiar voice pulled her from her spiraling thoughts. "Alina, what are you doing here?" Tessa stood before her, eyes wide with concern. The sight of her only true friend made Alina's resolve crumble. "He threw me out," she choked, the words heavy with pain. Tessa's face darkened, her jaw clenching. "That bastard. I knew he was cold, but this unforgivable." She wrapped her arms around Alina, holding her tightly as the dam broke, and Alina finally let the tears flow. "He replaced me with Vanessa," Alina whispered, her voice cracking. Tessa's grip tightened, anger radiating from her. That snake, she was plotting this all along. As Alina sobbed into her friend's shoulder, a cold realization settled in her heart. Derek and Vanessa had orchestrated this. Together they had ruined her life, her family, and now they were parading their victory. But they would regret underestimating her. This wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. Alina wandered the streets, her suitcase dragging behind her. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, but all she saw was darkness. She had nowhere to go, no one to turn to her. Family's wealth was gone, and with it her status and friends. She reached out to old acquaintances, hoping for a place to stay, but they all turned her away, their voices cold and distant. "I'm sorry, Alina, but we can't help you. You understand, right? We can't be associated with your family's scandal. one after another. They made excuses, shutting her out just like Derek had. Desperation clawed at her chest as she sank onto a park bench, hugging her suitcase for warmth. The night air was bitter, and her thin coat did little to protect her from the cold. Her stomach growled, a painful reminder of how long it had been since she last ate. But the physical hunger was nothing compared to the emptiness that hollowed her heart as she shivered in the darkness. Alina's mind raced, replaying every moment that led to her downfall. The memories were sharp, each one a dagger to her soul. Her mother's face flashed before her, her eyes filled with regret before she passed away, leaving her to face this nightmare alone. She could almost hear his voice urging her to be strong, to fight. But how could she fight when everything was gone? A tear slipped down her cheek as the weight of her loss crushed her. She had nothing, no money, no family, no home. The world had turned its back on her, just as Derek had. But then, as the night grew colder, a spark of determination flickered within her. She wasn't. As long as she was breathing, she had a chance to rebuild, to fight back. She wouldn't let them break her. Not Derek, not Vanessa, and not the cruel world that had abandoned her. Clenching her fists, Alina made a vow to herself. She would survive this. She would rise from the ashes of her ruined life and take back everything they stole from her. Even if it took every last breath in her body. Days turned into weeks. As Alina struggled to survive, she moved from one temporary shelter to another, doing odd jobs just to afford food. Her body ached from exhaustion, but she pushed through the pain, refusing to give in to despair. It was during one of these grueling days that she felt the first flutter in her abdomen. Her breath hitched, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach. The realization hit her like a bolt of lightning. She was pregnant. No, no, no. She whispered, her voice trembling with fear. Panic surged through her, her heart pounding wildly. How could this be happening? How could she bring a child into this world when she had nothing to give? But as her hand rested on her belly, a warmth spread through her, softening the fear. This was her child, her blood, her hope. Tears welled up in her eyes as she cradled her growing belly. I won't let anyone hurt you, she promised, her voice fierce and protective. Terrified, but determined, Alina made the decision to keep her pregnancy a secret. She couldn't trust anyone, not even Tessa. If Derek found out, he might try to take her child away, and she wouldn't let him have that power. Her days became a blur of work and exhaustion, her body growing weaker as the pregnancy progressed. Rest, but she fought through the pain. Refusing to give up every day was a battle for survival. But she was fighting for more than just herself. Now she was fighting for her child. Sometimes she ignored the burning in her legs or the dizziness that crept in during long shifts, convinced that stopping, even for a moment, would mean falling behind. It scared her how easily she placed her pain below her purpose. As the months passed, Alina became a master of disguise, hiding her growing belly beneath oversized clothes. But despite her struggles, there were moments of joy. Late at night, when the world was quiet, she would talk to her baby, her heart filling with love and hope. "You're my miracle," she would whisper, her voice soft and tender, and in those moments she found the strength to keep going, to keep fighting. She was no longer just a woman, betrayed and abandoned. She was a mother who would do anything to protect her child. Alina's body ached as she scrubbed floors and washed dishes. In the back of a dimly lit diner, her swollen belly hidden beneath layers of loose clothing. Her hands were raw and blistered, but she gritted her teeth and pushed through the pain she couldn't afford to rest. Not when her child's future depended on her survival. Every night she collapsed on a tattered mattress in a cramped room. She rented with the little she earned. Her stomach growled, the hunger gnawing at her insides. But she always put her unborn child first, saving every penny to ensure a better life. As she lay in the darkness, her hand instinctively caressed her belly. "You're my reason to fight," she whispered softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "I promise to protect you no matter what." Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away, refusing to be defeated. She had been abandoned, humiliated, and left to fend for herself, but she would not allow her child to suffer. She would build a life from nothing, brick by brick, even if it meant enduring pain and hardship. She had lost everything, but she wouldn't lose this fight. Days turned into weeks, and Alina's strength grew as her belly did. She learned to navigate the harsh world. She was thrust into her instincts, sharpening with each challenge. One evening, as she was cleaning tables, a familiar face walked into the diner. It was Tessa, her childhood friend, the only one who had stood by her during the darkest days. Alina's heart raced as she tried to hide, but Tessa's eyes locked onto hers. Alina, Tessa's voice was a mixture of shock and concern. What happened to you? Alina swallowed hard, her eyes brimming with tears. Life happened, she whispered, her voice breaking. Tessa pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly. Why didn't you come to me? You don't have to do this alone. Alina hesitated, her hand instinctively covering her belly. I didn't want to be a burden. Tessa's eyes softened with understanding. You're never a burden. Come with me. I won't let you fight this alone. For the first time in months, Alina felt a glimmer of hope. She wasn't alone with Tessa by her side. She was ready to keep fighting. Still, a quiet voice inside her questioned how long even a friend could be trusted. Betrayal had taught her caution, and part of her feared letting anyone too close, even someone like Tessa. With Tessa's help, Alina began to rebuild her life piece by piece. Tessa offered her a place to stay, a small room in her modest apartment. It was cramped, but it was warm and safe, a sanctuary compared to the cold streets Alina had endured. The two friends spent their evenings talking, reminiscing about happier times, and for a while Alina allowed herself to smile again. But even in moments of joy, the pain lingered, a reminder of the betrayal she had faced. She would often wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, haunted by memories of Derek's cold eyes and Vanessa's mocking smile. I trusted them. I loved him, she confessed one night, her voice cracking as tears streamed down her face. Tessa wrapped her arms around her, whispering words of comfort. They don't deserve your tears, Alina. They took everything from you, but they can't take your strength. You're stronger than they ever be. Alina wiped her tears, a fierce determination burning in her eyes. Tessa was right. She had lost everything, but she still had her willpower, and she would use it to rise from the ashes, determined to stand on her own feet. Alina searched for work, refusing to let her circumstances define her. It was during one of her job hunts that she met Graham, a powerful businessman who owned a chain of successful companies. He was charismatic and intelligent, his presence commanding respect wherever he went. Alina had heard of him before. He was known for his ruthless tactics and sharp mind, but when they met, she saw something else in his eyes, curiosity and intrigue. You've got fire in you, Graham remarked. His gaze unwavering. Most people would have crumbled under the weight you carry, but you stand tall. Alina's jaw tightened, her eyes reflecting the pain and determination that had fueled her survival. I don't have the luxury to fall apart, she responded, her voice steady. Graham's lips curled into a faint smile. I like that I could use someone like you. He offered her a job at his company, a chance to learn and grow. It was the opportunity she needed, a lifeline she never expected. Alina accepted, her heart pounding with anticipation. This was her chance to rise, to rebuild, and she would make the most of it. Alina's first day at Graham's company was overwhelming, to say the least. The office was bustling with activity, a sea of faces, moving with purpose. It was a world she had once been a part of back when her family's empire was thriving, but now she was at the bottom, a novice among professionals. She felt the weight of judgmental eyes as she walked through the corridors, her second-hand clothes, a stark contrast to the designer suits worn by her colleagues. But she held her head high, refusing to let insecurity consume her. She was here to learn, to grow, and nothing would deter her. Graham introduced her to his team, his authoritative presence commanding respect. This is Alina, he announced. She's new, but she's got the potential to surpass every one of you. If you underestimate her, his words were sharp, his gaze challenging, and Alina felt a spark of hope. He believed in her, even when she struggled to believe in herself. Still, a guarded part of her wondered if his kindness came with conditions. After everything she'd been through, trust was a currency she no longer gave freely. She would prove him right. She would rise above her past and reclaim her strength, one step at a time. The days were grueling, each one testing Alina's resilience. She worked long hours, pouring her heart into every task, determined to prove her worth. But it wasn't just her work ethic that set her apart. It was her determination to rise above the pain that weighed on her heart. She learned quickly, absorbing every lesson, every strategy Graham taught her. They would often stay late, discussing business tactics and analyzing competitors. Alina admired Graham's sharp mind and his strategic brilliance, and under his mentorship, she began to see the world through a different lens. "You're a fast learner," Graham noted one evening, his eyes reflecting a rare warmth. "You remind me of myself when I started." Alina's lips twitched into a small smile. "Then maybe there's hope for me." Yet she replied, her voice soft but firm. Graham's expression softened. "Hope? You're more than just hope. Alina, you're a force waiting to be unleashed." His words resonated deep within her, igniting a fire she thought had died. She was no longer the broken woman Derek had abandoned. She was reborn, stronger and more determined than ever, and she was ready to fight for her future. Alina's hunger for knowledge became insatiable as she immersed herself in the world of business. Every night, she stayed late at the office, poring over financial reports and strategic documents, absorbing every piece of information she could find. She learned the intricacies of market trends, the power dynamics of corporate alliances, and the brutal reality of competition. Her sharp mind connected the dots faster than anyone anticipated, and Graham took notice. "You're becoming quite the strategist," he remarked, leaning against her desk one evening as she scribbled notes. Furiously, Alina looked up, her eyes blazing with determination. "Knowledge is power, and I need all the power I can get." Sometimes she caught herself clinging to that knowledge not just as a tool, but as armor, as if mastering everything could shield her from being hurt again. Control became her sanctuary, and letting go no longer felt like an option. Graham's gaze softened, admiration flickering in his eyes. "You're planning something, aren't you?" Alina's jaw tightened. "I'm reclaiming what's mine, and I won't stop until I do." There was no hesitation, her voice, no fear, only purpose. She was no longer a victim of her circumstances. She was a force to be reckoned with. And she was just getting started. It was during one of her late-night research sessions that Alina stumbled upon documents linking Derek and Vanessa to her family's downfall. Her heart pounded as she pieced together the puzzle: secret meetings, falsified documents, and strategic sabotage. Derek hadn't just abandoned her. He had orchestrated the collapse of her family's empire, ensuring she would be left with nothing. Anger surged through her veins, her hands trembling. As she read the evidence, they ruined everything on purpose. She whispered, the realization slicing through her like a blade. She could almost hear Vanessa's mocking laugh after Derek's cold, calculating eyes. They had played her for a fool, and she had trusted them blindly. But no more. Her fingers tightened around the papers, her vision blurring with rage. She would expose them for who they truly were. She would make them pay for every tear she shed every night. She spent hungry and alone. As the night stretched on, Alina made a vow to herself. She wouldn't just take back her family's legacy, she would destroy the ones who stole it. Her revenge would be swift, calculated, and merciless. The evidence Alina uncovered was damning, but she knew she needed more to bring Derek and Vanessa down. She began to dig deeper, accessing confidential files and hidden correspondences with Graham's authorization. She was meticulous, leaving no stone unturned, her mind working tirelessly to unravel the conspiracy that had destroyed her family. The more she uncovered, the more sinister the truth became. Derek and Vanessa had conspired with her mother's trusted business partners, forging documents and manipulating deals to push her family's company into bankruptcy. It wasn't just about money. It was about power and revenge. They had wanted to see her family fall, to erase their legacy from existence. The weight of betrayal was suffocating, but Alina refused to break. She wouldn't let them win, not again. She was no longer the naive woman they had deceived. She was stronger, smarter, and more determined than ever. Alina's heart pounded as she shared her findings with Graham, spreading the documents across his desk. "They didn't just bankrupt my family. They killed my mother," she said, her voice trembling with anger. Graham's eyes darkened as he scanned the evidence. "They pushed her to her death, knowing she wouldn't survive the humiliation." Graham's jaw clenched, his fists slamming against the table. They're monsters, and they'll pay for this. Alina looked up, her eyes hard as steel. I need your help, Graham. I need to take them down. Graham's gaze softened, his expression resolute. You have my support, whatever you need. For the first time in a long while, Alina felt a glimmer of hope. She wasn't alone in this fight. She had an ally, one who was just as determined to see justice served. As they strategized late into the night, a bond formed between them, one forged through pain and purpose. But Alina knew she couldn't let her guard down. Not yet. Derek and Vanessa were dangerous, and they would do anything to protect their empire. But she was ready for them. She would expose their dark schemes and reclaim her family's honor. No matter the cost, Alina's plan began to take shape as she meticulously orchestrated her revenge. She knew she couldn't confront Derek and Vanessa head-on. They were too powerful, too well protected. Instead, she decided to dismantle them piece by piece from the inside out, using her position at Graham's company. She began to influence the market subtly, undercutting Derek's business deals and redirecting lucrative contracts to her new venture. She was strategic, playing the long game, ensuring that every move was calculated and precise. But in her quiet moments, she began to wonder, how far was too far? Each success came with a whisper in her mind, asking if she was still fighting for justice, or simply feeding the same hunger for control that once destroyed her family. Her goal wasn't just to defeat Derek, it was to destroy him, to make him feel the helplessness she once endured. It's time they learn what it feels like to lose everything, she told Graham, her voice cold and unyielding. Graham watched, her a mixture of admiration and concern in his eyes. Just be careful. Alina, revenge is a double-edged sword, but Alina's resolve was unshakable. They didn't just take my wealth, they took my dignity, my family. I won't rest until they pay. The first blow came when Alina exposed one of Derek's fraudulent business deals to the media. The scandal rocked his empire, sending his stocks plummeting. Derek scrambled to contain the damage, but Alina was always one step ahead, orchestrating a media frenzy that kept him on the defensive. She watched from the shadows, her heart racing with satisfaction as she saw the panic in his eyes during a televised press conference. This is just the beginning, she whispered, her lips curling into a cold smile. But revenge wasn't just about public humiliation. Alina wanted Derek and Vanessa to suffer privately, to feel the same betrayal and isolation she endured. She began to sow seeds of distrust between them, leaking false information to create suspicion and paranoia. The cracks in their relationship grew, their once perfect facade crumbling. Alina's vengeance was ruthless, but it was also poetic. She was reclaiming her power, one calculated move at a time, yet beneath the cold exterior her heart still ached. She had loved Derek once, trusted him with her soul, but that man was gone, replaced by a monster, and she would stop at nothing to bring him down. Still, there were moments, quiet ones, when she caught a glimpse of who she was becoming. The satisfaction she once imagined now felt sharper, darker. The more she won, the more distant her old self seemed. And sometimes, in that silence, she wondered if destroying them was healing her or consuming her. Alina's business acumen grew sharper with each passing day, and her company began to rise in prominence. She carefully positioned her brand to compete directly with Derek's, offering superior products at competitive prices. It wasn't just about money. It was about legacy. She wanted to restore her family's name, to reclaim the empire that was stolen from her. With Graham's guidance and mentorship, she navigated the competitive market with precision, targeting Derek's most profitable sectors. Her strategies were bold, disruptive, and meticulously calculated. She attended high-profile events, networked with influential figures, and steadily built alliances that Derek once dominated the business world. Began to whisper about the mysterious new competitor who was shaking the industry. Her name was on everyone's lips, but her true identity remained hidden. She was the shadow that threatened Derek's empire. And she was just getting started. The opportunity to confront Derek came sooner than expected, at an exclusive business gala. Alina made her entrance, her presence commanding attention. She was dressed in an elegant, tailored black gown, her confidence radiating. Derek's eyes widened when he saw her, his curiosity piqued by the woman who seemed familiar yet untouchable. He approached her, his charming smile in place, I don't believe we've met before, he said, extending his hand. Alina's heart raced, but she maintained her composure, her expression cold and detached. No, we haven't, she replied smoothly, shaking his hand. Alina Rayner, she watched his face for a flicker of recognition, but there was none to him. She was just another rival. I've heard about your company, impressive growth in such a short time. Derek continued, his voice laced with intrigue. Alina's lips curled into a faint smile. Just good business. She responded, her eyes locking with his. I believe in taking what's mine. The double meaning hung between them, unnoticed by Derek. She was playing the long game, and he was none the wiser. The night continued, and Alina navigated the room with calculated elegance, her charm disarming and her intelligence captivating. She watched Derek from the corner of her eye, studying his interactions, noting his allies and rivals. It was a delicate dance, one she performed flawlessly. But the evening took an unexpected turn when she ran into Vanessa, who was glued to Derek's arm. Her laughter, shrill and exaggerated. Alina's heart tightened, the memories of betrayal flooding back, but she masked her emotions, her face an impassive mask of indifference. Well, the woman of the hour, Vanessa drawled, her eyes flicking over Alina with barely disguised disdain. I've heard a lot about you, rising star. Aren't you? Alina met Vanessa's gaze, her eyes cold, I believe. In earning my place, she replied evenly, not stealing it from others. Vanessa's smile faltered, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. Careful, darling, ambition can be dangerous. Alina's eyes never wavered, her voice as cold as steel. Only to those who fear competition. The challenge was unmistakable, and Vanessa's facade cracked for a split second before she laughed, her arm tightening around Derek. I admire your confidence, but be careful who you may make enemies with. Alina's lips curled into a knowing smile. I don't make enemies, they make themselves. Her words hung in the air, the tension palpable. Vanessa's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering in their depths. But she quickly masked it, maintaining her facade of control as she walked away. Alina's heart pounded, her mind racing. Vanessa was sharper than she gave her credit for, but Alina was ready for her. This was her arena, her battleground, and she wouldn't back down. For the first time, she relished the power she held, the way her words could fracture even the most polished masks. It thrilled her more than she expected, and that thrill unsettled her. As the night drew to a close, she knew one thing for certain: the game had begun, and she was in control. Days after the gala, Alina's quest for justice took a darker turn. As she dug deeper into the past, she was determined to expose Derek and Vanessa, to reveal the truth behind her family's downfall. But what she discovered shook her to the core. Hidden in old files and encrypted emails were traces of a conspiracy. Far more sinister than she had imagined. Her grandfather's death wasn't an accident. It was orchestrated. Derek and Vanessa had manipulated the company's finances, pushing him into debt and humiliation. Knowing his health was fragile, they had deliberately driven him to his death to secure their position. Alina's hands trembled. As she read the documents, her vision blurring with tears. They killed him. They killed him, she whispered, her voice breaking. Her grief was raw, reopening old wounds that she thought had healed. But the pain, a cold fury, began to rise. They had taken everything from her, her family, her dignity, her future. But she would take it all back, and she would make them pay, haunted by her discovery. Alina confronted Graham, her voice shaking with anger. They murdered him, Graham. They destroyed my family and made it look like an accident. Graham's eyes darkened, his expression hardening. Those monsters, they'll pay for this. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Will expose them, Alina. I promise you that. Alina nodded, her resolve unshakable. I won't rest until I see them fall. But as she planned her next move, the weight of her revenge threatened to consume her. She was walking a dangerous path, one that could destroy her if she wasn't careful. But she couldn't turn back, not now, not when she was so close to the truth. She owed it to her grandfather, to her family, to reclaim their honor. She owed it to herself to see justice served, and she would, no matter the cost. The truth was her weapon, and she would wield it mercilessly. Alina's revenge was no longer just about reclaiming her family's legacy. It was about justice with her newfound knowledge. She strategically infiltrated Derek's business circle, posing as an ambitious investor eager to collaborate. Her calculated charm and intelligence quickly gained his trust, and he welcomed her into his network without realizing who she truly was. She attended every meeting, learning his business strategies and identifying his weaknesses. It was a delicate game of deception, one she played with masterful precision. She mirrored his confidence, matched his wit, and became an indispensable ally, all while planning his downfall. Derek was captivated by her charisma, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. Quite the strategist, Alina. He remarked one evening, his eyes gleaming with admiration. Alina's lips curved into a knowing smile. I believe in playing the long game, she meant every word. But behind her poised demeanor, Alina was a tempest of emotions. Every encounter with Derek was a test of her self-control. She fought the urge to lash out, to confront him with the truth of his betrayal, but she knew she couldn't afford to be impulsive. She had to remain composed to play her role until the time was right. Yet her resolve was tested when she met Vanessa again. Vanessa's smug arrogance was a constant reminder of the pain she had inflicted, and Alina struggled to keep her emotions in check. You've really made a name for yourself, Vanessa sneered during a business luncheon. Rising star, aren't you? Alina's eyes remained cold. I prefer to earn my success, not steal it. The challenge was deliberate, and Vanessa's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before she recovered her eyes, narrowing with suspicion. Alina held her gaze, refusing to back down. This was her battlefield, and she was winning. She was close to dismantling everything they had built on, lies and betrayal, and she wouldn't stop until they were left with nothing. Alina's strategic infiltration began to bear fruit as Derek's empire showed signs of crumbling. She exploited his weaknesses subtly, sabotaging his business deals and redirecting his key clients to her own company. It was a delicate dance of deception, one that required meticulous planning and flawless execution. She remained by his side, appearing as his most trusted ally, while orchestrating his downfall behind the scenes. The financial losses began to mount, and Derek's once formidable empire started to falter. I don't understand, Derek muttered during a meeting, frustration evident in his voice. We're losing clients left and right. It doesn't make sense. Alina feigned concern, her voice sympathetic. Maybe it's just the market shifting, we'll figure it out, but inwardly, she was exultant. Her plan was working. She was systematically dismantling everything he had built, just as he had done to her as Derek's business faltered. His personal life began to unravel. The cracks in his relationship with Vanessa grew widening with each passing day. Alina had sown the seeds of distrust, feeding Vanessa false information that made her question Derek's loyalty. The tension between them was palpable, and their arguments grew increasingly volatile. One evening, Alina overheard them fighting in Derek's office. I know you're hiding something, Vanessa accused, her voice laced with anger. You've been distant, secretive. Are you seeing someone else? Derek's frustration boiled over. You're paranoid, Vanessa. Stop being so insecure. Alina listened, her heart cold and unyielding. They were turning on each other, their once powerful alliance crumbling under the weight of their own lies and greed. It was poetic justice, and Alina relished every moment, but she knew this was only the beginning. The power shift had started, and she was determined to see it through. They were losing everything, just as they had made her lose. But her revenge wasn't complete. Not yet. There was still more to take, more pain to inflict, and she would savor every moment of their downfall. Derek's empire continued to crumble, his once unshakable confidence giving way to desperation as his business losses mounted. His reputation took a severe hit, and his allies began to abandon him. Rumors of his impending bankruptcy spread like wildfire, fueled by Alina's strategic leaks to the media. She watched from the shadows as his world collapsed. His power and influence slipping through his fingers, Derek became a shadow of his former self, his arrogance replaced with panic and fear. This can't be happening, he muttered to himself, pacing his office in distress. I built this empire. It can't fall apart, not like this. But it was falling apart piece by piece, just as he had torn down Alina's family legacy. Alina's revenge was unfolding exactly as she planned, and she felt a cold satisfaction watching him suffer. Yet she knew she couldn't afford to get complacent. Her mission was far from over, but as Derek's life unraveled, Alina found herself confronting unexpected emotions. She had dreamed of this moment, imagined the satisfaction of seeing him suffer, yet, as she watched him break down, she felt a pang of sorrow, a flicker of empathy she didn't expect. She remembered the man she once loved, the man who had held her and promised her forever. That man was gone, replaced by the monster who had betrayed her. But the memories lingered, haunting her, even as she pursued her vengeance. She confided in Graham, her voice heavy with conflicted emotions. "I hate him for what he did, but I can't help remembering who he was, who I thought he was." Graham's eyes softened, his voice gentle. "You loved him once, that doesn't just disappear, but don't let that stop you from getting the justice you deserve." Alina looked away, her jaw tightening. "I won't. He ruined my life. He destroyed my family. I can't forgive that." Graham nodded, his expression resolute. "Then keep fighting, but don't lose yourself in the process." Alina knew he was right. She was walking a dangerous path, one fueled by pain and anger. But she couldn't stop, not until she had taken back everything that was stolen from her, not until Derek and Vanessa were left with nothing. The moment Alina had been waiting for finally arrived. She arranged a private meeting with Vanessa, choosing a secluded cafe away from prying eyes. Vanessa arrived, her expression smug and confident, still believing she was untouchable. Alina maintained her composure, her face an impassive mask, but beneath her calm exterior, fury simmered. She watched Vanessa with cold detachment, remembering every lie, every betrayal. "Why did you want to meet?" Vanessa asked, her voice dripping with condescension. Alina leaned back, her eyes sharp and unforgiving. "I wanted to see the woman who orchestrated my family's destruction, the woman who played me like a fool." Vanessa's eyes flickered with surprise before she composed herself, a sly smile curving on her lips. "I don't know what you're talking about." Alina's lips curled into a mocking smile. "Oh, you will. I know everything, Vanessa, and I'm going to make you pay for the first time." Vanessa's mask of arrogance slipped, revealing a flicker of fear, but she quickly recovered, her eyes narrowing with defiance. "You have no proof," she snapped. "You're nothing but a bitter woman." Clinging to the past, Alina's laughter was cold and humorless. "You really think I came here unprepared? I have every document, every email, every transaction that ties you to my family's ruin. I know you and Derek conspired to bankrupt my grandfather to drive him to his death. I know you wanted my life, my legacy, but you failed." Vanessa's face went pale, her bravado crumbling as the weight of Alina's words sank in. You're lying," she stammered, her voice trembling. Alina's eyes gleamed with ruthless satisfaction. "Am I then? Why are you so afraid?" She stood up, her posture powerful and commanding. "This is just the beginning. Vanessa, I'm going to destroy you and Derek, just like you destroyed my family, and I'll enjoy every second of it without another word." Alina walked away, leaving Vanessa shaken and terrified. The game had changed. Now it was Alina's turn to play. Alina executed her plan with precision, exposing Vanessa and Derek's crimes to the public. She provided the evidence to trusted journalists, ensuring the story was impossible to bury. The scandal exploded across media outlets, headlines blaring with accusations of fraud, conspiracy, and murder. The world watched in shock as the truth unraveled, revealing the depths of Derek and Vanessa's deception. Their empire crumbled beneath the weight of public outrage, their carefully crafted image shattered beyond repair. Derek's face was plastered across every news channel, his reputation in ruins. Vanessa's involvement was equally damning, and the public's fury was merciless. Alina watched it all unfold from the comfort of her office, her expression cold and unyielding. "They deserve this," she told Graham, her voice devoid of sympathy. "They destroyed my family. It's only fair." "They lose everything too," Graham nodded. His respect for her growing. "Justice is finally being served." The fallout was swift and brutal. Derek and Vanessa became pariahs, abandoned by their allies and scorned by the public. Their business partners severed ties, and their wealth evaporated. As lawsuits piled up, Alina's strategic moves erred. They had no way out, no escape from the consequences of their actions. But the public exposure didn't just ruin their professional lives, it destroyed them. Personally, their secrets were laid bare, their lies exposed for all to see. Derek's facade of power crumbled and his arrogance was replaced. With desperation, he tried to deny the allegations, to paint himself as the victim, but the evidence was undeniable. "This is all lies," He shouted during a press conference, his voice cracking with panic. I did nothing wrong, but the crowd jeered, their anger. Palpable. Alina watched the broadcast, her heart steady. She had won. She had taken back her power. But as she looked at Derek's broken face, she felt a flicker of sorrow. She had loved him once, trusted him with her heart. But that man was gone, replaced by the monster who had betrayed her, and now he was paying. The price. Justice had been served, and Alina was ready to move forward with Derek and Vanessa's reputations destroyed. Alina moved to the final stage of her plan, a hostile takeover of Derek's company. She had spent months preparing for this moment, quietly, acquiring shares through third parties, gaining control without arousing suspicion. Her financial acumen and strategic brilliance ensured that she outmaneuvered Derek at every turn by the time he realized what was happening. It was too late, this can't be, Derek stammered as he watched his company fall into Alina's hands. Who's behind this? His advisors hesitated, their faces pale with fear. Alina Rayner, one of them, finally whispered, his voice trembling. Derek's eyes widened with disbelief. Impossible. She couldn't, but the evidence was irrefutable. Alina had played him from the very beginning, infiltrating his world and dismantling his empire piece by piece. It was the ultimate revenge, and she executed it flawlessly. Derek confronted Alina in her office, his face twisted with anger and betrayal. You did this. You destroyed me. He accused, his voice shaking. Alina met his gaze, her expression cold and unyielding. I didn't destroy you, Derek. You destroyed yourself. You chose greed, betrayal, and lies. You chose to ruin my family, to steal my legacy. All I did was return the favor. Derek's shoulders sagged, his arrogance replaced with desperation. I loved you, Alina. Never meant to hurt you. Alina's laughter was bitter, devoid of any warmth. Love you. Don't know the meaning of the word. You threw me away like I was nothing. You conspired with Vanessa to take everything from me. You drove my grandfather to his death, and now you want my forgiveness. Her eyes blazed with fury. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve anything. Derek sank to his knees, his pride shattered. I lost everything, he whispered, his voice hollow. Alina's heart tightened, but she refused to feel pity. He had chosen this path, and now he was facing the consequences. You reap what you sow, Derek, and now you have nothing. She turned away, her victory complete, her revenge was fulfilled. But the pain still lingered. She had reclaimed her power, her legacy, but she had lost her heart along the way. And that was a price she hadn't anticipated. The truth hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. As Alina stood before Derek, she watched as his face crumbled, his once confident demeanor shattered by the weight of his sins. But her next revelation left him speechless. You didn't just betray me. Alina said, her voice cold and measured. You betrayed our children. Derek's eyes widened in shock. Children, he echoed, his voice trembling. Alina's gaze was unyielding. Yes, twins, Elliot and Emma, they're yours, Derek. You abandoned them. The moment you abandoned me, his legs wobbled and he sank into a chair, his face pale. I didn't know. His disbelief turned to horror as the reality sank in. All these years I never knew, he whispered, his eyes pleading with Alina, but her heart was unyielding. You didn't care to know. You chose greed and power over your own flesh and blood. Derek's shoulders shook with silent sobs, the magnitude of his loss crushing him. Alina, please let me see them. Let me be a father to them. Alina's face hardened. You lost that, right? The day you threw me out like trash. They don't need you. They never did. Derek's face crumpled, and for the first time Alina saw him truly broken, but her resolve remained firm. She would protect her children from his poison. She had raised them alone, and she would continue to do so. Derek's remorse came too late. The first encounter was bittersweet. Alina watched from a distance as Derek stood frozen, his eyes locked on Elliot and Emma playing in the park. They were laughing their joy, pure and uninhibited, completely unaware of the man watching them. With a mixture of awe and grief, they're beautiful. Derek choked out, his voice thick with emotion. They have your eyes. Alina's expression remained cold. They also have my strength. The strength you tried to take from me. Derek's gaze never left his children, his hands trembling. I didn't know. Alina cut him off. You didn't want to know. Derek's voice broke. Please, Alina, give me a chance. Let me be in their lives. Let me make up for my mistakes. Alina's jaw tightened, her heart torn. You think you can waltz back in and play daddy after everything? You did. Her voice shook with anger. You don't get to rewrite history, Derek. You left us, you chose Vanessa, you chose greed, and now you want forgiveness. Derek's eyes were filled with tears. "They, my children, our children, please, Alina." "Let me try." Alina's resolve wavered, her heart aching for the man she once loved, but she couldn't let him hurt them the way he hurt her. "You can see them, but you'll never be their father. Not in the way they need, not after everything you've done." She turned away, her heart heavy with the weight of her decision. Derek watched her leave, his world crumbling, as he realized just how much he had lost. Alina stood at the window, watching Elliot and Emma play in the garden, their laughter echoing through the house. They were her light, her reason for fighting, and she had protected them fiercely. But now the man who had once shattered her life was asking for a place in theirs. Her heart was conflicted, torn between her hatred for Derek and her children's right to know their father. "Am I being cruel?" she asked Tessa, her voice heavy with doubt. Tessa's gaze was sympathetic. "You're protecting them, but they deserve to know the truth." Alina's voice wavered. "I hate him for what he did, but he's their father, and I see the pain in his eyes." The regret. Tessa placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You're stronger than him. You're stronger than the pain he caused. If you decide to let him in, do it on your terms." Alina's eyes filled with tears as she looked at her children. "I don't want them to be hurt. I don't want them to go through the pain I did." Tessa's voice was gentle. "You've built a world of love for them. They're safe because of you. Whatever you decide, they'll be okay because they have you." Alina's heart clenched as she realized the truth. She couldn't change the past, but she could shape the future, and whatever decision she made, it would be out of love, not revenge, not hatred. Just love. Derek's first visit was tense, his presence awkward and uncertain. He stood at the doorway, his eyes glued to Elliot and Emma, who stared back with innocent curiosity. Alina's heart tightened as she watched him struggle to find his voice. "Hi, I'm Derek," he stammered, his voice cracking. The twins looked at him quizzically before returning to their game, their laughter echoing through the room. Derek's shoulders sagged, pain evident on his face. "They don't know me," he whispered, his voice heavy with regret. Alina's expression remained guarded. "That's your fault, not theirs." Determined to make amends, Derek began visiting regularly, slowly earning the twins' trust. He was patient, never forcing himself into their lives, but always present, always supportive. He watched them grow, learning their quirks, their favorite games, their dreams. He laughed with them, listened to their stories, and cherished every moment he was given. "You're good at this," Alina admitted one afternoon watching him play with Elliot. Derek. Alina took the first step toward healing by forgiving herself. She had blamed herself for trusting Derek, for not seeing Vanessa's treachery, for losing her family's empire. But she realized that the weight of that guilt was suffocating her, keeping her trapped in the past. "It wasn't your fault," Tessa told her gently, her eyes filled with empathy. "You loved and trusted people who betrayed you. That doesn't make you weak. It makes them wrong." Alina's eyes filled with tears, her shoulders shaking as she released the pain she had carried for so long. "I kept thinking, if I had been smarter, stronger, maybe it wouldn't have happened." Tessa held her tightly. "You did the best you could, and look at you now. You rose from the ashes, you're a warrior." Alina, hearing those words, broke the dam inside her, and Alina wept, letting go of years of hurt and self-blame with each tear. She felt herself healing, the wounds finally beginning to close. She forgave herself, and in doing so she found the strength to forgive others, not for their sake, but for her own peace. She let go of the anger that had consumed her, the hatred that had chained her to the past. She forgave Derek for his betrayal, understanding that his actions were a reflection of his own brokenness, not her worth. She forgave Vanessa, recognizing that envy and insecurity had led her down a dark path. It didn't mean she would forget, nor did it absolve them of their consequences, but it freed her from the bitterness that threatened to poison her heart. As she watched Elliot and Emma play in the garden, laughing and carefree, Alina realized she had finally found peace. She had reclaimed her life, her legacy, her happiness. She had broken the cycle of pain and chosen love. Instead, she was no longer defined by her past. She was free, whole, and ready to embrace the future with open arms. And for the first time in years, Alina smiled, truly, genuinely smiled. Alina stood at the grand opening of her new venture, a company built not just on wealth, but on integrity, resilience, and vision. The crowd buzzed with excitement, meant, as she took the stage, her presence commanding and graceful. It was the culmination of her journey, her rebirth, from ashes to triumph. Today we celebrate not just success, but perseverance. Alina addressed the audience, her voice strong and clear. We honor the strength to rise above pain, to rebuild from ruins, and to create a legacy rooted. In truth, the applause was thunderous, but the greatest victory was the peace within her. After the ceremony, Graham approached her, his smile warm and genuine. "You did it, Alina. You turned pain into power." Alina's eyes softened as she looked at him. "I didn't do it alone. You stood by me through everything. You believed in me, even when I couldn't believe in myself." Graham's expression turned serious, his voice low and tender. "I meant every word when I said I loved you, but I never want to pressure you. If all we ever are is friends, I'll be grateful for that." Alina's heart raced, tears shining in her eyes. "I was afraid to love again, afraid to lose, but you taught me to trust, to hope." "I love you too, Graham." His eyes widened, his face breaking into a radiant smile. "You have no idea how long I've waited to hear that." They embraced, laughter mingling with tears, their hearts finally finding home in each other. It was a new beginning built on love, trust, and a future they would create together, standing at her family's estate, restored to its former glory. Alina felt a wave of nostalgia wash over her. The gardens were vibrant with blooming flowers, the architecture majestic and timeless. But it wasn't just the property she had reclaimed. It was her legacy, her identity, her place in a lineage of strength and honor. She walked through the halls, memories flooding her as she touched the walls that once echoed with her laughter. Her heart swelled with pride, knowing she had preserved her family's history while paving the way for a brighter future. Elliot and Emma ran towards her, their faces all light with joy. "Mommy, this place is amazing," Emma exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder. Alina smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "This is your heritage, a reminder that no matter what life takes from you, you have the power to rebuild." As she stood with her children, Graham joined them, his hand gently slipping into hers. "You've come full circle," he said softly, his voice filled with admiration. "You reclaimed everything they tried to steal from you." Alina looked at him, her heart full. "I reclaimed more than that. I reclaimed my strength, my peace, my heart. I found love again." She turned to her children, her voice tender, "And I found a purpose greater than revenge. I found the courage to forgive, to live, to love." Elliot's small hand wrapped around hers. "Does that mean we're staying here forever?" Alina's laughter was warm and joyous. "It means we're finally home." She looked at Graham, her eyes shining with gratitude. "And it means our story is just beginning." Graham's eyes glistened as he kissed her forehead. "Then let's make it a beautiful one." Together they stood at the threshold of a new life, one built on resilience, love, and hope. Alina had reclaimed her legacy, but more importantly, she had reclaimed herself. She was no longer defined by betrayal or pain. She was a woman reborn, a mother, a lover, a warrior, and her journey had only just begun. Bible verse of the story: "Though they intended evil against you and devised schemes, they could not succeed. For you overcame through faith and perseverance, and the Lord restored all that was lost." Psalm 21:11-12. Moral of the story: no matter how deep the betrayal or how great the loss, true strength lies in rising above pain and choosing forgiveness over revenge. It is through resilience, integrity, and love that one truly conquers adversity. When you let go of bitterness and embrace hope, you reclaim not just your legacy, but also your peace and happiness.